Hi and welcome everybody. This is my workshop about sound design in Haskell. Welcome to Haskell Love Conference. I hope it's going to be fun for you. It's going to be not just a talk but also a workshop. I'm going to show you some examples. So we are going to make some noise with Haskell. Let's start that. First we are going to use the library called C-Sound Expression. It is available on Hackage. It's easy to install. Basically what it does, it generates the code from Haskell representation. It generates the code for audio engine C-Sound. C-Sound is available for all major platforms, for Linux, Mac or PC. You can just install it. But we need it to work properly. On the examples we are going to generate the code and invoke the C-Sound command line on that. After both of that installed, we can import module C-Sound base to import the library. I already imported that. I'm in the GHCI session, so let's start. We are going to study the subtractive synthesis. Is the most widespread used technique for generating sound or used in VST plugins. So first we are going to make complicated signal source, then we feed it to the filter, then apply some effect like delay or reverb, then it goes through amplifier, we adjust the gain of the sound, and then we send it to speaker and here's the result. Also, a very prominent part of that is control signals. Control signals change some parameters of those building blocks. So we have a distinction between the signals. Both signals are stream of the doubles, but audio signal change rapidly in audio range, and the control signal change slowly. We don't perceive them as signal, but they do cool impact of the sound by making it more alive. So first we start with the most useful function. It's called DAC. It's a digital to analog converter. What it does, it sends the audio signal to speakers. Let's hear the pure tone. So this is basic the hello world of sound design. To stop that, I hit Ctrl plus C. Stop with. Okay, just hit Ctrl plus C to start the program from executing. So we've heard the pure tone, but we have many more wave shapes, and let's study the classical wave shapes. So we have OSC. Let's hear it again. Also more complicated is triangle shape. It's just a triangle wave. It looks like triangle. And next one is a square wave. It looks like the squares. Really harsh sound. And also we have sawtooth wave. And this is the harshest one. And all of these waveforms shares the same signature. They expect frequency in hertz and they produce the audio signal. They repeat some shape. Oscillator is just sine wave. Triangle is just triangle, and square is square wave. It looks like goes like that. And sawtooth goes like sawtooth. Also we have this pure waves. We have some random waves called white noise. And also we have pink noise. Notice that to multiply by a number we have to fmap it, because if we look at the signature of white noise, we have S here. S here, basically S here is like IO monad for our audio EDSL. So this is like an IO monad for audio EDSL. It behaves like monad, we use the same functions. So let's move on. We have our building blocks to create signals. The next thing is also, it's simple but important to know, is how to change the volume. It's called amplifier. We change the volume just by multiplying by the constant. So here's multiplying by the half. We can make it quieter, make it even more quieter. And if we multiply by 0, it just silence, because it streams zeros. And of course we can make it louder. Notice that it starts to distort. If the signal goes above the 1, it starts to have distortion, because and usually it's better to keep the signal below or within the range of -1 to 1. Also we have a magic function called mul. It multiplies anything by the constant. So if we have pure function, it multiplies, and also if we have noise, it also can multiply that. We don't need to introduce fmap here. It's kind of convenient thing to use. So use mul, and also actually it works for many different signals. Also it works for stereo signals. So mul is kind of hugely overloaded of triples and stuff like that. Let's move on to the next topic. Next, so we have audio generators and we have amplifier. When we have audio generators, it's interesting, if we play them in audio range, we are going to have audio signal, but if we reduce the frequency, we are going to have control signals, which are also interesting. They are called low frequency oscillators. Let's hear that. So for example, here's our common sound of sine wave. Sorry that. But we can make it more interesting if we start to vary the pitch by some low frequency oscillator. Notice has pitch start to vary. Also we make it moves more slower. What we do here, we have oscillators that produce signal, and we add some another oscillator that slowly moves within the range plus or minus 100, and it causes pitch to vary. Also we can apply the same trick for the amplitude. If we have, let's see, notice how amplitude starts to change, and we have we can apply various shapes. And in low frequency oscillators also it's useful sometimes. All the oscillators, they range within -1 to 1. They are normalized. They are called bipolar. But unipolar range from 0 to 1. Sometimes it's convenient to think of that in that way. And they come in various shapes. For example, let's apply unipolar square wave to our tone. So signal starts to blink, and we can emulate kind of crossroad with that, or make it even higher. And also we can make a kind of sound of phone call beep. kind of no one on the phone line to answer. Line is taken. So let's move on. It's just oscillators, and they come to various shapes. For example, we can, with sol, we have another shape. So it's more like a beating, because it moves like a cursor. It moves like that. In triangle wave, it's more smooth. Notice the distortion. Signal starts to distort. If it distorts, we should quiet it a little bit. Okay, here's our low frequency oscillator. And actually, a cool sound of that there is, we can use as many as we want. And also we can add it here. Let's use square wave and make it more slower. So we're already using 3 LFOs, but we can add as many as we want because they also produce signal, and signal is instance of num, which is convenient. The next important control signal is piecewise linear function. For example, we have, again, let's turn to our pure sine wave. And from this pure sine wave, we can, for example, let's imagine that we want to move from 220, we want to rise to 500, and then for 2 seconds we stay on 500, and when we move down for 3 seconds, all down to the 0. So we go up, and then we stay and we fall down. And we cannot hear anything because it goes from the 0 Hz, is not audible range. So what we do, we alternate values from these times. Times are measured in seconds. So we start for 20 to 20, then for 4 seconds we rise to 500, and then for 2 seconds we stay in 500, and for 3 seconds we go to the 0. Let's listen to that again. Another cool function is xpsec. What it does, instead of linear segments, it uses another shape. It uses exponential waves. But here, watch out for zeros, because exponential cannot be 0. If it becomes 0, we cannot exponentiate it. It's always 0. So we use it a little bit higher value. Here, cool. Also, we can apply that to the amplitude. So here we have white noise. We'll make it a little bit quieter. I would say more quieter. And here we can apply some shaping by linsec. So let's start with a 0, and for 2 seconds we come to the full signal, and then for 2 seconds we go down again to the 0. Let's do it again. Okay, so cool. Just simple stuff like that can do interesting sounds. Here's it sounds like an ocean wave if we make it really slower and attack a little bit bigger. Okay, let's move on. So with this in mind, it's kind of all may sound really simple, But we can start even with that, do some real stuff with that. Let's start with the kick noise. To make it, we just use kick noise is really short signal, so we use pure tone, and we multiply it by lin sec that starts at 1 and decays really rapidly for just 1/5 of the second to the 0, and we get. This is kind of short signal, but we hear too much tone in that. To make tone less perceivable, we multiply that by the same envelope. And it starts to sound like a kick. One cool trick to apply, if we square the shape, it starts to decay more naturally. It looks not like linear function, but more like parabola. Let's listen again. And I'd like to make it a little bit brighter in rise and volume. Wow. And let's give it a name, so we don't have to type it again and again. And let's listen to that. Wow. So we can play our kick in terminal. Not very handy to to keep the rhythm, but we have something. So let's move on. Another cool control signal that we have is arpeggiator. Arpeggiator is interesting because it loops over the values and repeats them with certain rates. So for example, we have Ctrl sec, have 20-20, 30-30, 4-40, and we repeat it with 2 Hz we have for each step. And let's apply 1, 0. So what it does, it just loops in Hertz along those lists. Okay, so far so good. And we can make it faster or really slow. Oh, that's really slow. Or we can make it super fast. Also an interesting thing to note is notice that transitions are really sharp. If we want to make glides, this trick is called portamento in synthesizers vocabulary. We can smooth it, apply the function called smooth, and it has more analog sound. If we listen to triangle wave, it's more sound analog. And with that we can make simple melodies if we introduce silence. We can call it, for example, we can call it an ARP1 and play that. Cool, let's move on. So, and notice that we have various shapes of the signal. For example, we have const sec, but also we have square sec. Notice the pause, because it's not a constant line, it's just half of it 1 and half of it 0. Also we have triangle shape, or for example sawtooth wave. Okay, let's move on. The next, so we have our kick, but the problem with our kick that just plays only once. To make it play more than that, we can introduce an interesting stuff. Instead of linsec, we are going to use our arpeggiator sawsec, and it's going to repeat the shape. So again, I'm multiplying pitch and the frequency by this shape, and let's listen to that. Also, one trick that I used, we have OSC with prime. OSC with prime is going to have one auxiliary parameter and is going to have the phase. We shift the phase so that oscillator starts from the 1, so that we have more punch in kick. Because by default OSC starts with 0 and it becomes kind of weak kick. So cool, we have something. And also let's listen to that with our arpeggiator, and we a little bit multiply it so that we don't introduce the distortion. So we have kind of little melody going on. So let's another thing that I'd like to mention is that instead of applying the listen to in hertz, we can use the pace pitch. It transforms numbers to hertz. So here is concert A. We can listen to that. This is the same. Oh, sorry for that, because I should do that. That was really harsh, sorry. So this is basically the same. And also we have for all notes, for first digit is an octave, and the digit after the point is our keys on the piano. C, 0 is C, then we have C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, and so forth. Another trick that I'd like to use often is I'd like to introduce some scale to that. We have, for instance, with P we define the pitch helper that mapped just the number on the pentatonic scale. And because it's pentatonic, we make it mode 5. So after that it becomes really easy to use pitches. And also I'd like to define the octave up. To make it octave higher, we just multiply frequency by 2. Or if we divide, we make it octave lower. It's just sound properties of the signal. So let's hear again. Sorry for that. And octave higher and octave lower. So we can use this helper. It's really very convenient. Let's move on. And we can move it. We can use it also in the arpeggiator. Or we can make it octave lower, for example. We can add of course, kick to that to sound it more interesting. Sorry, notice that distortion, you'd better watch out for that. Okay, let's move on. The next sound that we are going to emulate is hi-hat. Hi-hat is just a really simple sound. We are going to multiply the white noise to the and give it a shape of the, so it repeats fast and has some pattern in that. So we have some sequence that gives the signal the shape, and it produces sounds like that. Also, I like shape 3, 3, 4. It's going to be like that. Only this is not 3, 3, 4 because it's 2. And notice that here we cannot just add the kick because they have because hi-hat uses white noise, it's effectal, and kick is pure. We need to wrap it in the monad. And also we can add our arpeggiator